Hello, 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 everyone. This is Reverend Tanika. I am the Mindful Coach, and this is Mindful Intentions Nurture and Drive Your Business. Today, my guest is Vic Manzo. He did not start off calm or peaceful in his mindset. He was quite the opposite, he says. He was off the wall, high stress, anxiety type of individual, never calm and couldn't slow down, and often distracted by many things life had to offer. And when he saw someone calm and balanced, he thought that was a successful talent that they had. Then he finished chiropractic school, and he thought he would have a self of accomplishment. I can't talk today. What is going on? But anyways, when he finished chiropractic school, he thought he was going to feel accomplishment, but he didn't. He thought that it was going to be off the ground running, and it was, but he thought it would be something more. He had prestigious awards, and he still felt emptiness with what he had accomplished. He felt he needed something more. Then he felt he wasn't worried anymore, because when he felt he wasn't complete, he found that once he embraced this process that took a while, he started to flourish. He's going to talk about this process today, because I always talk about processes. We have to go through a process. There's things we've got to go through. So when he found out what this process was, everything started to expand, not only in his finances, but all throughout his life. And today, we're going to understand how processes work, how we can flourish in our finances and in our life. So Vic, without further ado, tell us more about who you are, what you do, and why you do it, and how we can flourish in this life and in our finances.
I love that. Such a loaded question. Yeah, I mean the reason, yeah, I've always been a guy, a person who wanted to help others in some way, shape, or form, in some way. Um, but I didn't know I wanted to be a chiropractor. I mean, that was a journey that I was guided towards being one. Something happened in my life at 19 where my health was starting to break down, and a lot of the things I thought what health was and what I was taught and conditioned was not working. And it came a point where chiropractor helped me with that, and it changed my whole life around. And all of a sudden I was like, man, if this does that for me, there's other people who are way worse than where I am, and I want to be able to help them. And so it's always been a mission and a purpose, but really deep down it was more of a mission and purpose for me to figure out life. That's always been in the pressing in the back of my mind, because if I can figure out for me, then I can figure out for others. And that was one of the things that was always a driving force. So health has always been something I was always interested in. I always had it, but it was more for how I can be stronger, and how can I be in better shape? How can I, keep myself longevity as long as I can? And then I became a chiropractor, and it was one of those things where, as I went through chiropractic school, I learned so many different things. And oops, sorry, my dog is in my.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. There's thunder going on, and
That's okay.
it's sunny outside. I apologize. I'll try to. Hey, come here. He's so obviously. I apologize. I am so sorry about this.
Goes. Bring it on.
There, I got him. I'm calming him. Yeah. So it ended up when I got into chiropractic school. It's one of those things where I didn't just study, the chiropractic side. I studied energy medicine and all these other things because I want to understand deep spiritual truths of life and how life works. And I come from a background of Catholicism, Roman, Italian, Catholic. So I studied the Bible a lot, but I wanted more. I always had a seeking for more. And then there was, but as my life continued on, I got into chiropractic. I became a chiropractor, started my own business. And it was one of those things where I was a little bit more, um, I didn't know how to be successful in a sense, but I had a fear of not being financially successful. So I studied from all the best chiropractors. I studied from the best entrepreneurs, but self-help, personal development, motivational speaking, you name it. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to figure out what financial success is, health, life is, to get to that level and so forth. And then I achieved that. And then all of a sudden I was unfulfilled. Like just I said, when I graduated chiropractic school, I thought I'd be fulfilled, and I wasn't. Well, that lack of fulfillment came too when I got to that financial peak I wanted to get to. And that's the journey I started to want to look and say, well, you know what? I've studied all this thing called mindset. I've studied neuroscience being a chiropractor. I've been studying spiritual truths, universal laws, and all this other stuff. And I have experiences in my life. I was like, why don't I just take what I have and use what I have already and just tap within and not focus outside anymore? And I started to do that, and I changed my whole business around. I started to change everything. And what happened was is I started to live life on my terms, in the sense of choosing my rules, my codes, my beliefs of what I wanted to experience, having my cake and eating it too. Too many times in business, we're taught we have to sacrifice, we have to grind and hustle and work really, really hard, and just keep doing the same thing over and over. And eventually, some point, someplace, sometime, you'll get successful, right? But why do most entrepreneurs have burnout? Why do most of them are exhausted? And so I started to, because I was that for the first 5 years of my career. And then I decided to put these things in the work. And within a year, I had my practice that I changed my practice around. I took a financial hit to do that. It was my choice. And then from there, I was back to where I was, and I was working 50% less. Yet my relationship was growing. My mindset was getting sharper. I was doing more of the how to strengthen my mind and how to challenge it so I can grow more in many different ways. My health was flourishing. And I didn't have health issues. I just had, before, I would get like a back issue that would show up from time to time. And one of them lasted 8 months. And I was on top of my game, no issues, working out full max, all this stuff, and still to this day. And it was one of those things where I started to realize, wow, I was able to actually choose the way I wanted to go and say how everything was going to align, and it did that. And so then I started going, entrepreneurs don't get that advice. They're told to work hard, grind, hustle, do, look outside yourself. I said, I want to start helping entrepreneurs do that. I want to be able to help them do what I went through. I tested it out first for me. I saw it work, and then I started to do coaching on the side. And it wasn't until January 2022, this year, where I decided to go full time and let go of being a practicing chiropractor. And it's been a mission of mine to really help people, entrepreneurs specifically, lead more fulfilled and soul filled lives, utilizing principles of like spiritual truth, universal laws, quantum physics, neuroscience, and the things that I've learned over the time to create that and do that.
Absolutely. That's so powerful, because sometimes I question, what I do, and not now, but like in the beginning, I questioned, because people looked at me like I was crazy because they didn't quite get it. Then COVID came, and now everybody's looking for something, right? And so I'm like, yeah, now they get it. But what you said is so powerful, because oftentimes, because I remember when I quit my job. And I'm like, I'm quitting my job. And it was so funny because my boss, he's like, I'm going to hire you a life coach, because he knew my dream was to be a coach. And he's like, I'm going to hire you a life coach, and we're going to see if this is what you're supposed to do. And I had to take this test. It was like this 2-hour test. This all this stuff I had to do. And they were like, you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing, and you should be helping people. And you've got a decision to make to live your best successful life. And that's when I made that decision to do exactly what you just said, because you're right. And I'm like, nobody taught me that. It was something that was inside of me. And hearing you say that is like, yes, I know that I'm not crazy. It's like, yay. But when something is inside of you that's so powerful and so strong like that, you want to share it with other people. But how, Vince, do you convey that to others? How are you able to bring that to others to help them to be able to see what you're saying? Because I get it, but there's some that have been ingrained so much with the work hard, and in order to play hard, you've got to work hard, and you've got to store up right now for later, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. How do you help these people to understand what you're saying?
The first thing is understand how their mind works and how things just work and govern. Because when you really look at it, you have to see it in a different perspective, because most people have been conditioned to this work hard, grind, hustle, and all that. Yeah, we've all heard the slogan, we all heard the quote, "Work smarter, not harder," but you're not taught it. And some people say, there's people out there who say, "Oh, I'm going to show you how to work, work less and do this." But I bring it to a different table, bring it to a different side of the story. Is like, if I can have you understand how your mind works and how life works and how you create your life using universal laws like the law of vibration, law of attraction, right? There are two different laws. The law of vibration has to happen first. And then the law of attraction comes in after. But understanding how, number one, how you see things is what it's going to be, right? Now, these are spiritual truths that have been out around for 3, 4, 5,000 years, where they say that what you see in your mind's eye is what you create in your physical reality. What everything comes from the non-physical to the physical. We have to think it, and what we think is what we're going to create. And so those are truths that have been out there. There's no science to back it up. It's just been something that's been told thousands of years, and it's there's different religions that come up with it and share similar things to that and so forth. But quantum physics with the observer effect said that what you see, how we see things, is what it's going to be. So you have to grasp that first and say, well, maybe I don't have to, because my question always was, and this is what made me challenge things in a way. And I wasn't doing it to be a rebel or anything. I was always like, well, who told us that this is how it should be? Like, who created those rules? Because my background understanding free will or choosing what I want to choose, if I'm in the likeness, created in the likeness image of God, that means I'm a creator. And everyone heard that story before, that we're a creator, the author of our life, the producer, the actor and actress, and so forth. But that's great. But then why is everything we're being told to do and not be to create? And so that's where I was like, man, there's got to be something that aligns with that. And that's where I looked at the mind and seeing, understand that. But I had to understand, I learned all the spiritual side of things, and I was like, okay, I need some science to back this up, because people think this is all woo woo. So quantum physics does that, and they do that in a study called the observer effect, where they looked at it, and how the scientists looked at something is what it became. They looked at light, and it was in a wave form, which means infinite potential, infinite possibilities. I mean, and when they went to go look to see what the light was, it would turn into a particle, which means physical form. And they did this a gazillion times. And so there's that aspect that shows us right there how we see things in our life is what it's going to be. Now, you may say, well, then why is it that I see things in a positive and it doesn't happen? There's called limiting beliefs that hold you back. That's the conditioning in
Come
the
on, talk
mind.
about it. Talk about
Yeah.
it.
So you got these things, and I talk about this in my new book, but it's one of those things where we're conditioned in so many different ways. When we were born into this world, we didn't have rights and wrongs, or this or that, or the divisiveness that we see as adults, or any of that. We were just pure light, pure essence, pure being, pure innocence, right? And we understood the power of vision, because that's how children, they imagine. If you look at children's brains for the first 2 years, they're developing the right side of their brain, which is abstract, imaginatory, all that great stuff. And if you look at kids when they play at 3, 4, 5 years old, they're very imaginative. They're very in that state of mind. And so I'm losing. Oh yeah. So, but we got conditioned in ways of what's right and wrong, what we saw, the modeling of our parents, our friends and family, and so forth. That's conditioned our mind, that has been programmed in the subconscious. This is a tape that runs on its own all day long. 95% of our lives are dictated this way. And the thing is, if you really want to choose your life, you have to learn how to reprogram your subconscious mind. And there are so many techniques you can do out there, but you have to look at what those limiting beliefs are. And the beliefs is what I call codes in my work. They're the same thing. I just like codes. It resonates better with me, with like programming a computer, right? It's a code. It runs the same way no matter what. Here's input, here's code. Here's input, here's code. Until you change code, no matter the input, all this stuff is going to still run the same with the reaction, input, code, output. So basically what that means is something happens. It fires up the limiting belief, which is a trigger. And then the outcome is a reaction or experience or what you're having in life. And so understanding that we all have limiting beliefs that hold us back. This is what helped me transcend in business and in life, because what I thought I needed to be in business was conditioned. When I broke away from that, it was scary. It wasn't easy. I mean, I took a 40% hit financially. And again, it was by choice. But it was one of those things where I was starting to say, you know what? I'm going to choose my path. This is how I want to have this. And utilizing some of these things to go that route, I had to go after my limiting beliefs, because I knew that there was something underlying that was going to hold me back. And I started to look at these things in different ways. And there was a financial one. There was a lot of financial ones. But there was other things too. Like I always had to work hard. I grew up in physical work. So I come from a blue collar family. So working hard is like my nature. Like my wife knows, like when I want to like just take 4 hours to get away to do something, I don't sit on a couch or play video games, which I do like to play video games. And I love watching movies. But if I want to just be active, I'll go do physical labor, like landscaping work or something like that, for 4 or 5 hours in the dead heat of the sun. And my wife, And my wife is like, I just don't get, like, you're overheating. And I'm like, I love this. This is because it's natural to me. It's normal to me. I'm conditioned. This is what it's calming for my mind. But long story short, it's you get conditioned. If you don't break through these limiting beliefs, no matter what you do. This is the problem with business advice about do, or telling you what to think. Here's 5 things you should do to do this or that. I'm not saying they don't work. It's just you have to work up. You're working upstream. You got so much resistance you have to break through. But you can choose an opposite, go downstream, which is a lot easier. I'd rather just take a surfboard or a not a float, a tubes. Anyhow, just jump on the water and just cruise down the water. And
Absolutely.
that's a possibility too. That's a whole nother world, and you can have that. I had to see it for myself first, and it was just something I had to see. And then when I did this, all of a sudden it was just such a process, because limiting beliefs come all the time, and your triggers, things that trigger you emotionally, or something that happens and you get really hard on yourself and get down. There's usually beliefs, and there's stuff that we have to work through. There's stuff there. That's kind of help some of my clients break through these things, because once you change your belief on something, it changes your behavior, habits, and your results. And so you can change. It's kind of like memory. I'll just share this real quick. There's new stuff out there. I don't know, but it's new. I really don't call it new. We all had this talent. It's just we lost it as we got older. But when it comes to memory, some people say you have a good memory. Some people say you have a bad memory. Well, the truth is there is no such thing as good or bad. It's just a working memory. And when you're a kid, when we're children, the reason why I have such phenomenal memories is because we work the way our brain naturally works. Unfortunately, the school systems have taught us to go away from that and not teach us how to be like that. So then it makes us to go into repetition, to memorization. And that is like grinding out so much work. I forget how much times you have to do something to build it into a long-term memory. It takes a lot of work, but you can make it happen. And this is the same thing as doing cookie cutter types of advice and processes. They work. You're just going to have to put a ton of work into it. You're going to follow all the laws that they're saying. I call this Newtonian physics. But there's another side of working memory, which is going back to a kid. And going back to a kid is we do things called association. We associate things. We do storytelling, and that's how we storytell our memories. And there's so many other things you can do in doing this stuff, right? I studied going to a chiropractic school. I had to take a lot of sciences. Chemistry, I had to take it over and over again. Periodic table is something I'm very well familiar with. And I remember, I had to memorize it at one point, and it took it took like a week to get it down path where I thought I had it figured out. Then 3 years ago, I was doing this technique, learning about working memory, and I memorized the first 50 elements in 5 minutes. Now, I'm not no super genius. I'm not. It's just utilizing, right? So this is called effortless action. I could have put a ton of effort trying to memorize like I did before, right? It took me over about a week, give or take, to get it down, or 5 minutes. I had 50 down. I could have got it done probably in 10. I went to 50 and I was like, let me just see if this works. And then a week later, someone tested me again. I still had 50 memorized. If you ask me today, I don't. But it was interesting. But I have a concept. I can get back into like my storytelling and the things that I use, the techniques, because that's how children learn. And so when it comes to our lives, it's the same thing. You can choose the Newtonian pathways. You can choose the force mentality, the force aspect. Anytime you use force energy, what ends up happening is you have to give something with that. That's called the opportunity cost in business. That's called the sacrifice. All those rules and all the things that people say in the business world, that is all true. You have to do that if you follow that world. But there's another world called quantum, and quantum physics and the quantum world is showing that it's more about a being element, not a doing. It's not saying that doing isn't important. You have to do. But, it's like I use an analogy of like David and Goliath. David could have prayed all day, but he had to get up, pick up the stone, and throw it. But the difference between David is he only had to do, because he followed the law, he followed the quantum realm. He only had to pick up one stone, and that was it. He didn't have to pick up 1,000 or 10,000, or whatever that may be. It was just one, because he was aligned. He knew what his objective was. He had everything in alignment, and when he took the action, it was effortless. So that's that.
That's that. People.
We can wrap it up. We're done now. No, I'm just kidding. But that's kind of how this works. It's kind of cool how you can make those changes.
But you're absolutely right. And it's so funny because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about everything that you're saying. And it further brings me to why I do what I do. And I know why you do what you do, but it's so beneficial. And I think it's so funny because I remember when I go, everything that it all resonates to, and we, depending on what you believe in. And I do believe in spirituality. I believe in Christ. I believe that God created us. And so my whole business is built around transforming through the renewing of your mind. It's all biblically based. But everything you just said is the same aspect. The same exact, it's what it is. And no matter how you spin it, it's what it is. And so no matter what you call it, like when people say, oh, you can call it God, or you can call it the creator, or you can call it the universe, or you can, no, it is what it is. And we have to look at it for what it is. And like you said, when you see it in that perspective, you can create it in the light that you want. And it's all in that energy and that force field. And you can either fight against it, like you said, or you can just jump on that raft and float. And so I love the way that you bring that, because a lot of times we just spin our wheels thinking that we're working for success, and we're working hard to get to something, but we're working ourselves to death. And when we get to that success that we think that we're working towards, it's too late to really do what it is we're working for. And why can't we have that now? And a lot of times people have been so programmed into thinking that you can't have that now, and you are being selfish if you are doing things that go against what you've been told, and you start thinking that you have to do what society tells you to do. And when you step away from that, people start to question your sanity, or they start to question what you're doing. And it's because we've been given misinformation. And it's great that we have people like yourself that have stepped up, that say, hey, I've done my work, the real work, to understand, to uncover. Because what is it? Seek and you shall find. If you seek the knowledge, it's going to be revealed to you. But some of us have been so ingrained with this false misinformation that we believe it. My children, when COVID came, it was the best thing that could have happened, because I finally got what I've been asking for. I wanted to stay at home. I wanted my children to stay at home. I wanted my husband to stay at home. I wanted our family to be together, and I was thankful for that. And my kids were freaking out. I need a teacher. I need to be taught. I got to have, how am I going to learn without a teacher? And I'm like, seriously? Do you know my kids did really well? And now they're getting ready to go back to school for the first time. And my thing, I told them, I said, I expect no less than straight A's now, because you made A's and B's while you were at home. And my oldest, she's about to be a senior now. We've got one that's already in college, but she missed her whole high school because of COVID. But this one, she's about to go back as a senior for the first time since COVID. And I said, I expect no less. And she's like, oh, now I'm going to be stressed. And I'm like, well, what are you going to be stressed about? Because if I don't make straight A's. And I said, why wouldn't you make straight A's? Well, because it's so much pressure. I said, why would it be so much pressure when you could do it at home without a teacher? And now you're going to have the one thing you told me you needed to be able to do, because you've been told this, because in her mind, she thinks this is what she needs. And I'm like, you don't need those things. You can do it without that. But you've been programmed, because she's been going to school her whole life, and these are the things she's been taught in school. I haven't had enough time to deprogram her, because she believes what they've told her. She's going to have to find out on her own, and I'm going to let her. And it's okay. But when she goes back to school, I don't want her to be stressed. So I talked her off the ledge. She's going to be okay. I'm not going to freak out on her if she doesn't make straight A's. I was just trying to prove a point that she doesn't have to go to school to make straight A's, or be at home to make straight A's. She just has to apply herself, right? Can you talk about that? How do we get there? We have to apply ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, and it's shifting beliefs is real. I mean, the simple way to explain that is just give power to a new one. I mean, that's the simplicity of it, because that's what you're doing. Like when I work with people in beliefs, and you look at someone who's had a belief system they believe this for like 30 years, that I'm not worthy, or I'm not valuable enough, or I'm not good enough. I'm like, you gave power to that for 30 years. Now you have a choice. You can still believe that to be true, or you can see something in yourself that's different, that will start to build in a little bit of a spark to have you start to look things at a different way. And then you can start to believe that you are worthy. And when this is what I love about the universe and life, and whatever this whole thing called life, is that when you do make a shift like this, the way you know that you truly have made the change is you see it in your physical world.
Yes.
Let's say you have a price, or you have a business and you have a high ticket item, and you're like, I don't know, I've never had no one pay in full for this much ever. And then all of a sudden you've done this work. Next thing you know, someone comes on board, whatever it may be, and they pay right in full, no questions asked. And you're just like, holy cow. Or, and it could be in business, it could be in life too. It could be many different elements, but it's knowing, because the universe will, the way the law of vibration attraction works is wherever state that you're vibrating at is going to create an attraction to that reality. Like attracts like. So you vibe at a certain vibration first, and then you'll attract the life that you want. That's how these two work together. So when you make a change in your belief, that's going to change all the coding of who you are and the vibration of who you are. And what's going to happen is all of a sudden that's going to shift what you were experiencing before. And if you're in that vibe, if you truly made that shift, you're going to see a different reality. And usually it comes pretty quick. It's not slow, because the universe likes to work with speed. And
Yeah.
so it's really more than just, instead of just, when I say the being element, it's really a vibration element. And when we're looking at like, I need this because of this, we've looked outside ourselves instead of trusting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't need to go to school, but I don't need to be at a school with a teacher. I can be at home and learn instead. But because we've been conditioned, this is what we've done. When we go through a different experience, our survival mechanisms, our brain kick in, ego kicks in. Past, all of a sudden, we're looking at past histories and saying, "No, we've never done that before. We've only been in school with a teacher. We've never been outside of that." Or, "Hey, you know what? I've only made this much money. I've never been seeing more than that much money." Well, that's why it holds you back to only see this much money. Even if you make more money, you still make the same at the end. It's crazy how that works, but it does work that way. I've went through that. I saw that happen. Doubled my business in a year, and it was like my third year I was going into, and I doubled it. And I was like, how did I make the same? Like, that makes no sense. I doubled my business. I should at least doubled my profits, at least on that. And I didn't. And I was like, how the heck this happened? And I heard someone talk about, if you don't change your mind and where you are, you'll make more money, but still be the same. It was a money consciousness kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, limiting beliefs. Let me see where this is. And so I started to look at, I didn't do anything different. I didn't really like change the doing aspect. I was just like, all right, so why is this number okay for me? That must mean I'm only worthy of that much. And why am I only worthy of that much? I should be worthy of more. Why is that? Why can I not make more? And what is it? And I had to do a lot of inner seeking and looking and seeing. And again, it comes back down to I wasn't good enough for more. This is what I was okay with. This is where I said, hey, I'm okay with that. I wasn't saying this to myself. It was just the subconscious doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, you know what? No, because I had all the beliefs that people may say, because I was growing up when people had money, they're like, oh, look, those are people that have money. They have this, they're like that. Look at them. And it's just a way to create a divide to give an excuse why you don't have that life. And I had a little bit of that because I was like, if I was at that level, then I can afford nicer things. And people may say some things like that about me. When I found that out, then I was like, oh, hell no, let's go. That's excuse me. That's not here anymore. That's going. And I was like, you know what? If I have nice things, it's because I've worked my butt off to have that. I can enjoy that. I've created a life to enjoy those things. And I just changed my perspective on it. And then I shifted that belief. And then all of a sudden, next year comes around, and I kind of made close to the same. That was going into my third year. It was, I can't remember now. Second year to third is when that was second to third. So that was when I was all of a sudden like, I didn't make as much more, but my profits went up, and that was cool. And then I was like, all right, this is working. And then I said, okay, how can I play with this now? Now I'm getting confident, right? Because now I'm like, hey, I've done the work. Now I saw the results. My sales didn't change, but yeah, my profits almost doubled. So I was like, that's where I should have been. I said, okay, I'm going to double everything minimum next year. And this is where I want to be in that process. And the next 2 years, my practice tripled. And then I had 5.5 increase in profits. And again, it wasn't like I did anything new, because I didn't. The only thing I knew was I moved to a new office. That may have helped a little, but again, it's all vibrational. So it's the state of where I was. And I had a vision of just loving on my patients, serving my patients. There's all this other stuff I did. And it just kept expanding and growing. And it was very, very cool to see that. Again, I didn't hire marketing. I didn't do Facebook ads. I didn't do all these things I was told or potentially could do to grow my business. I literally just loved on my patients, served. I had a crystal clarity, had a vision, had all these other things. And I really focused on that limiting belief to be like, you know what, I'm worthy of more. And I went all in. Like my accountant, when I showed her what my rent was going to be, she's like, yeah, that's like 15 plus % of your overhead. She's like, I never recommend that. Like you're way overboard. I'm a little concerned about you. And I looked and I said, don't worry, we're going to double this year. She's like, I've known you for a little bit. I've seen you do some cool things. She's like, but that's a tall order. And then all of a sudden next year comes around. I say, how we do? She goes, We got good and bad news. I said, okay, let's go with the good first. It makes me feel a little fuzzy, so the bad doesn't feel so bad much. And she's like, oh, you basically almost doubled your practice. I was like, beautiful. Like, that's what we want. I go, so what's the bad news? We didn't prepare for that, so you got to pay more taxes. I was like, that's okay. I'll get over it.
That's awesome. You know, I'm glad that you're saying what you're saying because, okay, again, my husband is a pastor. I'm an associate pastor. And, you know, in church, we've been taught. I haven't been taught because, last night I told my mom, I said, how many times have you heard me say, I don't like organized religion, but I'm obedient and I do what God tells me to do because I'm here for a reason to help people. But this reason right here, because it's been ingrained in followers of Christ that they're not supposed to have much, right? And that they should be prosperous. But I believe the word tells them that he wants them to live life and live it in abundance, right? And he wants them to prosper. He has a plan to prosper them. And many people that follow Christ and loved him were rich, right? They had abundance. They had riches. But for some reason they think if you have riches that you're evil. And I need to help change and expand the mindsets to understand that no, he wants you to have these things. He affords you to have these things, but it's in the way that you see it, how you gain it, how you receive those things. And so just being able to tap into that mindset to help them to see, because I think that the reason why there's lack in the church, because the churches are dying, the people are lacking, it's suffering going on, and it's because they're not understanding how to see their worth and increase, you know. And I think a lot of times, because I know from being younger, I remember like when I was younger, church people were poor. That's just the bottom line. And I'm being honest. And I'm saying from a kid, most church people were poor people, and the only people that they thought had money were the pastors. And that's not the case. We don't get paid to preach. I don't do it to get paid, you know? But what I'm saying is my job is to help people to be able to grow and to flourish and to be able to increase in their life and in their health and in their wealth on all levels. But when you start talking about increasing wealth, it becomes a problem. How do we help people to understand how to tap into that and to see? Because, you know, the first thing they say is money's the root to all evil. The lack of money is what causes people to do strange things, you know. But when you are able to have the supply and the need and have your needs met and not have to worry about those things, you can accomplish greater things, right? And you can help people and you can serve on a greater level and you can do more things. You don't complain, get mad, your anxiety, your stress levels are decreased. How can we help people change those mindsets of thinking that having money is evil?
So the first thing is, right, the misunderstanding of that quote, which I know, the verse, and I know you know it very well. The love of money is the root of all evil, right?
Thank you.
And so that's really the quote. And I've heard it all the time. Money's the root of all evil. Money's the root of
Yeah,
all evil. Until
exactly.
I read the Bible for the second time in high school. That's where I came across the quote, and I was like, the love of money is the root of all evil. I go, why do
Because
they
you can't make
say
it to
money is the
God.
root of all evil? Right? And I was like, there goes a misunderstood information or misseeing something in the way it should be. But when it comes to, then, money is just money. No one's evil. Money just makes more who you are. If you're a great person, man, money is going to make you even more of a great person because it's going to bring out more of who you are. It's life energy. If you're like just a low vibe individual, whatever that may be, then it's going to create more of that. That's just what it does. So it's not like because some people say, well, money changed them. Money never changed anybody. It just makes you more who you are. It's already who you are. It's not like it doesn't change anything. Money doesn't have the power to do that. But when it comes to excelling more with money, again, we get caught in the trap of doing. In the essence, we need to do more being. Like I said, when I said I really grew my practice in 2 years, I didn't do anything. But what I did was this: I focused and looked at my practice into the future and said, who is the chiropractor that I want to be? how do I want to show up? I wasn't doing this to make more money or be thinking I was going to make more money. I didn't that wasn't even in the conversation at all or in the whole process. All I wanted to do, I was looking to be more fulfilled. I wanted to have more fun in my office, and I wanted to see people become more of a gathering, have an impact in the community. I want to see moms sitting in my waiting room, all talking. They're all patients of mine. I've just their kids and them and so forth, and they're all having conversations. The kids are playing. I saw this hole in my head. I saw myself conversating with patients and the connection I was having, how I felt, how they were going to feel after. I saw people walking out with smiles. They came in without them, and they walked out with them. And I had this whole vision. I was taking all my senses of smelling the essential oils. I mean, I can go all day on this. I mean, it took me like a half hour I did a half hour of visualizing all this. And I said, that's how I want to feel every single day. And then what I did was I said, okay, body, show me where that shows up. And I would feel where it was. And I said, okay, that's what I need to feel. This is where I'm going to anchor. This is where I'm going to attach to. And every time I feel this, seeing the future, this or what I want to become, who I want to be, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to have. And that's the end of it. And that's all of a sudden, I mean, I didn't even look at my numbers for 6 months. I had a coach at the time, and my wife would send the numbers to him and about my practice and how it's doing. And I said, I only want to be alarmed if something takes more than a 50% hit. I need to be aware of that. Other than that, I can care less. I never got an alert, but it was one of those things where I just let everything go and I just kept focusing there. And I continue to do that from here on out. And I do that. And this is why I teach clients a lot. Like when they want to get into doing, like, Doc, I got to make more money doing this and this and that. How can you help me with that? I'm like, okay, let's go to the being. And like, but that doesn't, and I have to break down those conditionings. But it's one of those elements that, and here's the science to support that now. Remember, everything is vibration. If you're feeling good every single day, loving what you do, serving people, enjoy, and let's say if you're in a service industry and you're always going in and you're seeing yourself being in a good energy, a good vibe, and you just keep bringing that to the table. Do you think eventually you're going to be contagious where people are going to want to keep coming to you and referring to you and bringing people to you? Absolutely. And that's what happened. We had referrals coming out of nowhere just in conversation. When I made my shift in my practice to be more pediatric focused, we didn't do anything there either. I only saw 5% of my patient volume was pediatric. This was in 2016, 17. We were doing that. And all of a sudden, in 6 months, we went to 48%. Not one thing I did from a marketing standpoint, and nothing changed. It's not like I was being actively educating on kids or anything like that. It was just in conversation, just because I came from that being element and what I saw and what I wanted to see. All of a sudden, I'm having a conversation. Like, hey, Doc, can this help with my child? They've been dealing with this and blah, blah, blah. Absolutely. I said, I'll have to do this and this, whatever my thing was. And these things were just coming up left and right. Oh, someone had a family we served and they've done really well. And all of a sudden they refer to families. And I'm just sitting there going, this is called effortless action, effortless success, because the effortless action, all I had to do was show up in my office and just be me and just replicate what I kept putting out and visualizing. That was it. That's what the energy I had to put out there. And then the effortless success came because when I was really at that vibration, we've been told in life, and you've heard this, I know I've heard this many times, go out and chase your dreams. Go out and get it. Go out and make it happen, right? That is the worst advice to give because it's a trap. What you seek will also come seeking you. What you want to create in your life is going to want to have a life, to have an experience. I want you to think of your ideas as like an own entity in itself. And when you call out to it, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I would love to have that opportunity. You're the person that's going to bring it to me. You're going to allow me to live. Oh my God, thank you so much. I'm going to come to you. But instead, what we do is we block that. And what we do is we interfere with the process thinking we have to do this, that, or whatever the path should be. And instead of trusting that this is how kind of the universe works, if you can help me with this quote. Oh my God, what you sow, you shall reap. Yeah, what you sow, you shall reap, right? When you plant a seed in the soil, you don't really think about it much. You just let it do its thing and let it cultivate. And what happens? Do you have to try to figure out how to get those tomatoes or whatever that you're growing? No, it's going to come naturally and grow on its own, and the tomatoes will come, right? And they even change colors for you, so you know when they're ready. I mean, how beautiful nature is that for us, right? It's not an over desire. We have to try to figure everything out. It's just give it what it needs, love on it. The giving part of what it needs is you just focusing on that energy, that being, that element of who you are and what it is that you want to experience for yourself. That's it. And just nurture that and focus that. That's going to give it life. And then life's going to do what life does. It grows and expands and evolves. And when you start to do that, that it will turn in, and you'll have that tomato. It's going to come to you because I'm sorry, thundering. But it wants to have that. In other words.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm telling you, it's the truth. And I promise you, when you seek, you shall find. And this podcast, I love it because every time I'm seeking knowledge, someone comes on here and answers my questions and helps me. I don't know if it's helping anybody else, but I know it's helping me because I'm enlightened. I need to hear these things to understand that I'm on the right path, and what I'm feeling that I need to do, I'm doing it. I just need to make sure that I'm doing it in the right order. And you've helped me to put that in perspective and see that if I'm not seeing it in the right light, I maybe need to look at it in a different way. But you've helped me to have some clarity on some things here and some understanding, and to know that, we are human, but we're beings, and allow ourselves to be, and I think we get in our way so much. We get in our way, like you said, we block those things sometimes, and we don't allow them to cultivate. And I think about that when you said about planting the seed. When a palm tree grows, it takes 15 years for it to just spurt up out the ground before it just comes up. 15 years to just get the first sprout up, to grow as high as they grow. Now, I'm not sure how long it takes to grow that big, but I know 15 years before it comes up out the ground. So imagine if the palm tree just decided it wasn't coming up out the ground ever. It would never be so beautiful as it is. But look how beautiful it is after it finally decides to come out. Look at life if we just wait for things to manifest and let them take its time. But we've got to be patient, and we've got to allow things to do what they do. But I think sometimes, like I'm saying here, we get in our way. What would you say to those people that are on this path and want this, what you're talking about, but want to hurry up and get it overnight? What do you say to those people?
Yeah, it's kind of like health in an aspect. We educate on health that health is not a a destination, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Everything's a process. The law of gestation states that all things in the universe has a time. It all takes a time. There's a period of time it takes the need to cultivate the word. You said a palm tree takes 15 years, before it sprouts up. A baby to be created takes about 9-10 months. There's everything that has a gestational period. You have a gestational period of when your dream's going to become a reality in your life. The thing is, the more we put times on the things, we think we know when it should happen. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with putting a timeline on it. You just don't want to have an attachment to it. An attachment means an energy of thinking this has to happen here, or else I'm a failure, or else it's not going. I need it to happen, or else. You can't put that kind of pressure on it. You got to let it do what it does. You got to let it, like I said, like a tomato plant, you got to let it just do its growth. Let it work its system like a palm tree. You got to let it create its root system to create the environment, the support systems to be able to go ahead and sprout up the way they do. And, you have to, if you're trying to say it has to happen by tomorrow or next week, I need to be in a month, I should be ultra successful. Then the problem is what you're doing is you are thinking you control every single aspect of it. And there's something that the universe, you were co-creating with God. I mean, if I say universe, God, doesn't matter. You're co-creating. And so our job is just to share what we want. It's like I always say, there's universal catalog out there, and you just pick what you want and it's going to happen. It's then just trust the process. It's going to happen. Because what if you're, and this was me, I knew so much of the stuff that I was like, oh yeah, this is when I'm going to do this, and this is when it's going to happen because I'm using law of attraction. I know what it is. I know this. I know that. Yeah, they didn't happen. Didn't happen on my timeline. And it was one of the interesting things. But as I sat back, I looked and I said, I stressed myself out, because you're probably stressing yourself out if you're thinking it needs to be here at a certain time. I can guarantee you're stressing yourself out. And you can choose that route, but understand there's this thing called the dance. And you just got to let things take its course. The only thing you have to do is when you feel like there's a process and you feel like there's it has to happen in a certain time. It's kind of like someone who's dancing with someone and the person's leading just way too much. It's not going to be smooth. It's not elegant. You're creating turbulence. You're creating issues in the process. It's a beautiful dance. You set what you want to set and you just guide with life and let it guide you along the way. It's going to show you what you need to work on. It's going to show you how to get to that point. And when you go from that place, this is where I talk about effortless success in action, because life then's going to bring to you what you need, what you have to work on to get to that level. You don't have to think about it. How nice is that? You don't have to try to figure out. How beautiful is that? So you just sit back and wait and know it's going to happen. You just got to show up and do, like when we call the grind and hustle, I always say the grind and hustle is just focusing on your vibe or where you are every single day, and just focus on what you want. Do you have to do work? Absolutely. Do work that inspires you. Do work that you feel called to do. Not that I have to and should to and that. There are some times we have to do those, but most of the time it's the work that inspires. And what I mean by that is there's times I do things where I'll hammer out like a ton of video content, all this stuff within a very, very short period of time. And then I'm done. I don't want to do anything for next day. I mean, like the next day I'll wake up and I'm like, I don't feel like really working too much. This is more self-care. Let me focus on that today. And I'll do that. I mean, I have my calls and my normal stuff that I have scheduled, but then the next day may come and maybe I feel a little more inspired. Maybe I don't. That's fine. I'm not rushing it. Now, you're talking to a type A driver personality. That's not normal for type A driver personalities. It's more of what can we get done for the day to make us feel well. And the more we do, the more we feel better. And I've learned, I'm still trying to work with this. My wife helps me with this. Is just when I'm in those states, I take more self-care. I'll go meditate more. I'll go take a walk in nature. I'll do stuff like that to recenter. So the point I'm trying to make for those who are in that state is you got to let go of the reins and trust more. The problem is the reason why you want it in a certain time frame is more to the fear, to the want you want control, and you're afraid of the uncertainty. So in essence, instead, you got to embrace the uncertainty, because really that's where that's where your life is that you want. That's where your dream life is. That's where everything that you seek is in uncertainty. And humans need to, unfortunately, due to our information era, we are way too much in control mechanisms and trying to figure things out because we think we can just Google it and some expert says this and like, okay, that's it. And that's not it. And there's other elements that come into play. And my own work that I've done, because I was that guy who needed the control. I needed to know I was going somewhere. I didn't want to fail. So I took every metric I could in my power. And man, that's stressful. And now I let go a lot of it and I just trust. And it's amazing how it works. And I've done it before. There's times I remember when I first opened my office, 6 months later, I thought I had to close it. It's just money wasn't coming as quick as I thought it was because I had student loans that they were not being nice. I had to pay I had to pay a mortgage basically on it. And I'm like, how am I going to do this with a business and all this other stuff? But long story short, I said a prayer. When that prayer came and my dog's agreeing with me, I so apologize about this thunder. Let me see if I can quiet him up with that. There we go. And so what ends up happening is I said a prayer and I'm like, you know what, God, I'm like, if I'm meant to own my own business, then so be it. And I knew if I didn't get a certain amount of money by the end of that week, and it was a Sunday, and I was like, if I don't get money by the end of the week, I don't even know how it's going to come. I don't even know where I'm going to get this. But I'm like, then maybe this is not meant for me to be. But if it is meant for me to be here, I'm trusting in you 100%, trusting. I'm going to show up tomorrow. I'm going to show up every day, love it. I'm going to do what I have to do. And hopefully it just works out. Well, I had three patients pay in full that covered my expenses for my business for the next 6 months.
Look at God.
Right. But what did I do? What happened? The opportunity was always there. I just had to let go. I had to stop controlling and just trust and know that, focus on my vision, focus on that stuff, put the high vibe, really get myself to be centered and show up every single day. Even in my coaching business, I do that now where I got, sometimes I'll get stuck in stinking thinking or some old patterns. And then I'm like, what do I tell a client? No, I would tell a client this. All right, great. Let me get back in that state. All of a sudden, I get done with my meditation. I do all my self-work stuff. A couple hours later, I'm doing my email checks and I'll check my social media. And all of a sudden I have a DM, somebody who's interested in coaching with me. And I'm sitting there going, they didn't sign up. They didn't pay. They didn't do any of that. But it's a lead. Someone's interested in what I do. And now I'm going, where'd that come from? Wow, I let go today. I really got into the future self of me and what that'll look like. Wow, I really got into seeing how I like being on a podcast, the energy I bring to the table. It's the element in the being of who I want to be on there, the element of being who I want to be with my clients, the element of being what I do and stuff that I do. And I was like, every time I let go, it pretty much works that way. And it's funny, I did this in my business, in my chiropractic office before, when it came to like needing new patients, or we had a couple low months of new patients. I remember I had a doc in the office and he's like, what do we got to do with this and that? And I was like, don't worry about it. It's all going to work out. And he's like, I don't understand. I'm like, we'll see. We'll talk about the end of the day. And at the end of the day, my wife would be like, hey, we had like 6 new patients call and blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, how? I'm like, maybe it was coincidence. And then a couple months later, we do it again, and he'd just be like, "Okay, how do you do that?" And I was like, "Well, at that time, I didn't know how to verbalize it as well. I just knew the feeling. Now I can verbalize and teach it, so it's kind of interesting. And I shared that already with you guys.
Yeah. Hey Vince, before we jump off of here, I have a question for you because um I don't know, maybe somebody else wants to know it, but I want to know this for myself. You know, you are going through and you are doing great and you are being able to be in that vibration. But then you're not in that vibration anymore. Then you're in that vibration again. How do you stay consistent? How do you learn to maintain that consistency in that vibration? Because I think sometimes, I'm gonna say for myself, I'm just being honest. I like to be transparent. Sometimes I think it's like, oh, that actually happened. Whoa. And then you forget that you're able to do that and you forgot what happened. How do you maintain that consistent vibration?
So you have to, meditation is the favorite part tool that I like because it increases I call your focus muscle because it'll keep you focused more there. Life's going to have ups and downs, just going to be that way. I'm not always in a high vibe. I get my lows and highs like anybody else. But what happens is I don't go so deep in lows. Like my lows are very short and I'll bounce back up because of this practice of meditation, this practice of breath work, this practice of journaling and stuff that I've been doing for like 13, 15 years. There's so many tools. So it's not like all these work. You could choose what works. Heck, you can read scripture and that helps you get into that state. I mean, you have to, what I teach my clients is that I'll share like all these different things they can do. And I'm like, listen, don't go and try them. Like figure out what, I go, because try to teach people to feel more rather than thinking. I'm like, if you want to just go process of elimination, go ahead. If you're that type of person, go for it. But you got to find something that can help you recenter because in the beginning, you've been conditioned to have the ups and downs. We've all been conditioned that way. And to be you again, it's humanly impossible. You always in that high vibe. It's just not always going to work out that way in our favor. You can probably be that way. Like I'm in a good mood, in a great state, probably about 92 to 95% of the time out of the year. Right. So you think about that, people are like, oh, that's crazy. Well, I said, hold on, think about it. 8% out of 365. That's still almost a month where I feel that way, but it's not a whole day though.
Mm-hmm.
But I've done things to where if I can't get out of it quickly, then I'll either do some self-reflection or I use tools like meditation or breath work, jump in a cold 39-degree temperature water or take a cold shower. That's really going to shock you and get you out of it. But I have tools to help me so that I don't keep going there. And the more that you don't go there or stay there, the shorter the time you're in there, you start training the mind to stay more focused on the positive and start to see more in that light. And then it's just time, right? Again, here comes that time thing again. It takes 84 days to rewire the brain to adapt to something new. So that's 84 days. That's at a minimum. That's probably longer now just because of our attention span being shorter. But so when you look at that perspective, those are things that understanding these things take time to do that. And it's okay to have the lows because that helps us find something that we need to work on too. So the lows aren't always bad either. It's just how you look at it, right? Again, how you see things. I also call ourselves like a spiritual alchemist because you could change the energy of something. Sometimes I'm in a low and I'm like, okay, why am I here? What's bringing this on? Like I'm not fighting it because sometimes we fight that. I just want to know what's going on. I'll do a self inventory of my energy, my mindset, where my focus has been at. What's some of that inner talk that may be going on? What's my subconscious saying? I just do this kind of process. And sometimes there's stuff I need to work on. I'm like, okay, great. We got to do some self discovery today. Let me go hop into meditation and figure that out. Or it's just like, I just woke up this way. All right, well, let's just shift this energy. Let's get more into a high vibe. Let me go really do some visualization and get into that future self of myself again. And that's something I teach a lot on because that's you're priming your energy every day. And I recommend doing it multiple times in a day because you can do this work. You're going to feel great. And then like an hour later, you're not going to be there anymore. It could be 5 minutes. You won't be there anymore. Sometimes it might last 3 hours. But once it comes down, when you make time, get back, do the same work, only takes a minute or two, and then reprogram yourself to get the vibe back up. And then just keep doing that. And eventually it'll be easier and easier to stay up there. And it becomes harder and harder to go down, if that makes sense.
Yes, it is. Now let me ask you one last question. Are you fulfilled now?
I'm working on true fulfillment. I'll be honest. Because if you think about fulfillment, I'm really working on this now. This is something big that this is just in the last like 2, 3 months. I've been really looking at my life and truly seeing what is enough for Vic Manzo. What's enough for me? That's what I'm looking at. What's enough for me to have in my life? How much money do I want to make? How much do I want to accumulate in my life? What do I want to be doing? And that's something where I look at and I'm just like, wow, this is the first time I ever said this, because when it came to money, I was like, I just want to keep making and growing and expanding, because you always should be. You should be growing and expanding and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's ego driven. Ego wants more and never can be satisfied. Spirit knows when it's enough. And so I was like, all right, so I need to tap into that. So will I ever be fulfilled? No, I don't think I will, because I'm just the type of person. My wife says this all the time. You'll never be satisfied with anything, because you always want to strive for higher levels. Like, you have that mindset where when you get to one level, then you're like, cool, great, let's get to the next one now. And she's like, you're just that person. But I said, but now I'm trying to counter that by finding fulfillment. But right at this time in my life, no, I'm not fulfilled. I have a mission and a vision that I want to accomplish, and I'm not there. I probably won't ever get there, because it's grand and big and it always changes. What it means is that, like, I have a 5, 10, 15, 20 year vision, right? So in 5 years, when I get there, then I look and I go, well, I did some great things. I got close, but yeah, I'm still not there. And I got the 10 year I got to go to. 10 year, 15, 20. I'm always seeking ahead to keep growing and expanding. But I think there's a sweet spot in fulfillment, and I'm not there yet, but I am working. That's a big thing I'm working on right now.
Absolutely. Vince, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? How do they work with you? Where are you at on social media?
Appreciate that. So my hub is my website, empoweryourreality.com. I do offer, for those who are business owners and they love my vibe, you like what I've been talking about, or this resonates with you, I'll do a free one-on-one coaching call, 30 minutes. We get on a call and we break out what your challenges or what are some things you want to achieve. And I'll give you some advice. And then if I can help, I'll tell you how I can do that. If you want to, I have my podcast on there. I have free resources on my website under free resources. And then if you want to connect with me on social media, I post pretty often. It's in the bottom left corner of the website. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn is where I play. Come check it out. If you have questions or anything about what I discussed, you can always DM me. I do read my DMs. I do respond to them. I love to hear from people. So appreciate that.
All right. You've been an awesome guest. I really appreciate your time today. I thank you for sharing. You've dropped some great nuggets and you've helped me to go deeper. Hang out with me for just a few more minutes while I get us out of here. But today, we've learned to understand our deep spiritual truths of how life works. We've got to live life on our own terms. And that means learning to choose the way we want to go by being, not just doing, but being. So let it do what it does, people. Let it do what it does. And I would say, let go and let God. Remember, as always, you were created with a purpose, people. Now go be great. Have a great, blessed day. I'll see you again real soon. I got another podcast coming up at 5 p.m. We may be live, we might not be, but stay tuned if you want to see me. Talk to you soon, Reverend T, the Mindful Coach. Mind your business.